How to make your model levitate. Tutorial.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you're all having amazing creative days. In this video, I'm going to give you a little tutorial on how to do this. Now, this is a picture of a model levitating on the background, but I'm going to teach you what you need to know in order to have moving elements on top of a photo. So if you want to take your Instagram to the next level and create some dynamic photos with moving elements, this tutorial is for you. Let's get into it. All right, so welcome to the video. Today we're filming on the phone, and we're doing a behind the scenes with Zombaebby. Zombaebby. You've got so many names.
I only had to put the baby at the end because like Zombie was taken by everybody.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the plan. We have one light up here. Model is going to be standing in front of this light. And there we go. We have the black backdrop, so we can cut her out because we're using that image there with a kind of dark backdrop. We have a pink gel on one side, blue on the other. We have a warming gel behind her, and I'm going to be using a black pro mist filter, so hopefully that creates a nice glow. And then, because the ground is reflective there, we have a mirror on the ground here. All right, so let's talk about conceptualizations. Yes, that's a real word. So we have this beautiful image we downloaded off a stock website. Obviously, you got the neon lights and stuff in the background. Looks really cool. Now I want to take a photo of this model. Obviously, she's not in that image, that, you know, the stock shot image. So I have to sort of get the lighting in my photo reflecting off of her to look like she was in that original photo. So in this case, we have this neon X behind her. So I put a nice warm light behind her. You can see in the neon X, there's a lot of whites and yellows, and then blues and pinks. So I put a warming gel behind her, and that's gonna kind of be like the yellow light coming from behind her as if it was the neon sign. And then I decided to put a pink light to my left and a blue light to my right. So there's gonna be two light sources flooding from either side. And that pink and that blue light is gonna complement the pink and the blue coming from the neon behind the model in the original image. So that's the concept there with the lighting. So hopefully that matches. And then of course, the floor in this image, I haven't decided whether or not I want to have a reflection of her body on the floor or just her foot, but I put the mirror on the ground to get her reflection from a lower angle. So if I want to take that, I can cut out that reflection and sort of blur that on the floor to make it look like her image is reflecting off the floor. So that's the conceptualization for this composite shot. All right, so here we are in the Lightrooms. These are the images that we shot for the shoot. And you can see here we got the pink light on the left side, blue light on the right side. So we got a nice pink light coming from this side, and we got a nice blue light coming from this side. And the warming light in the background didn't really do much in terms of adding any kind of character to the shot for lighting. I don't really see it on the hair either, but so that light probably wouldn't be necessary. In the original concept for this, I had a trampoline, and I got the model on the trampoline, and she was, you know, testing to see if she could jump, but with these shoes, it was a no-go. So we had to scrap the trampoline idea, and also with the mirror in front of her, if she fell forward, yeah, that would have been a mess. And that's not really the kind of photo shoot we want to do. So what I decided to do is, this is the image I ended up editing here. And you can see, really changed the temperature. I made it really blue to match the stock image, which is pretty cool tone. So I did that. That's pretty much all I did for editing, but I lost my train of thought here. Oh, yes, the shoes. So what I did is, you can see here, she's obviously standing on the ground. So what I did is I took a bunch of shots of her with her foot in different positions that I could superimpose into the shot. So obviously if you're flying, your foot isn't going to be level to the ground. Your toe is going to be kind of dipped forward or maybe to one side or the other side. So that was the idea here. So we got the shoes, you know, some stock shots of the shoes for the edit in different positions. All right, that covers the photo shoot side of this conceptualization. So now let's move on to the Photoshop. All right, so here we are in the Photoshops. We got both images loaded up. Now you may have more images if you're doing something more complex, but the first thing you got to do is check to make sure that the color temperature across all the images lines up. Now in this case, I lowered the color temperature of the zombie shot. I made it a little bluish to match the background. So now they both kind of have a cool tone to them. And I think that's super important in the composite shot, because if one image has a warm tone, one image has a cool tone, and you try and put them together, it just something about it just looks very, very awkward and it doesn't fit. And you lose that kind of immersion that you want to create with this. All right, now moving on to the next step, we got to cut out Zombie from the background. So there's different ways to do this, but this is the way I like to do it. I will duplicate the background layer, hit Control J, and I think Command J on a Mac. Then I will click on the background layer and I will create a new blank layer by hitting this little plus icon in a box to create a new empty layer between the two layers. And then what I'll do is I'll paint that layer blue. You can pick any bright color that really isn't represented in your shot. In this case, there's nothing that's super bright blue, so blue works. And the idea here is that if we cut anything out of this top layer, you can see the bright blue in the background. So we know what we've cut out, but we're not going to cut anything out. We're going to mask it out. And if you don't know about masking, check out that video right there and come back. But the thing with masking is it's non-destructive. So if you mask out a part of the image, and let's say you did it by accident, or you want to bring it back later, like, half an hour later or the next day, you realize, hey, I want to bring that piece of hair back or whatever, that thing I cut out, you can always go back and just paint it white and everything comes back. So it's non-destructive, and that's super useful, especially when doing composite shots, because you never know. You might mask something out and then be like, hey, you know what? I actually needed that. So what I like to do is use the lasso tool, and I have my feather set to 0 here because the model is pretty far away from the camera. If things get a little closer to the camera and you want more of like a wraparound or a softer edge, you can change that feather to 1, 2, 3, and it'll just give a softer edge. But in this case, I want a hard edge. So what you want to do is select the background copy layer, the one that you have on top of the color layer. And then you want to take your lasso tool, zoom in nice and close, and cut around all the edges that you want to cut out. And once you close your lasso, then you paint the selection black. And with a mask, obviously black means it's cut out. So color everything in black. And when your lasso areas overlap, make sure you cut, there's like a little fringe piece that needs to be painted in black. So I like to use the brush instead of the paint bucket because that allows me to brush over all these little fringe pieces that might be sticking out. So it might take you a little bit of time, but go through the whole image and cut out the model from the background. All right, and cutting out is done, and that is the most tedious thing in this whole process. And the one thing I want to mention is that if you want to edit your photo, like you want to adjust the skin or do any liquefaction or anything like that, do your Photoshop editing first before you cut out. So just get all that editing done and then cut out the image. And here we go. This is the image cut out, and I gave myself a couple of options here. We have Zombie, and then we have the reflection. I'm not sure if I want to use the reflection, so I just did a rough cutout so I have it there and I can go and finish it off if I need to. And the other thing I did is I cut out the other image so we have the shoe. So if we zoom in here, we can see that on the original image, Zombie's foot is flat on the ground. And that really doesn't make sense if the person is flying. You want the toe kind of angled downward or off to the side to give the illusion that they're lifting off. So we have the second shot with Zombie's foot pointed downward. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut out her original foot and then superimpose this new foot on top of the old foot to give that illusion. In order to create the illusion that Zombie's floating, I need a shadow underneath her to create a separation between her foot and the floor, and that kind of creates that illusion. So what I did is I took the cutout image of Zombie, I flipped it vertically, I changed it to completely dark. So using saturation, I just pushed the slider across to make it black. I moved the shadow into position, and then I used a Gaussian blur to kind of blur it and give the illusion of a shadow. Now to move the mask layer over from one image to another, it's pretty simple. You just click on it and drag it over. Photoshop might give you this message saying it's not the same depth, whatever, hit OK. And here we go. So this is it. Now we have a mask layer that we can move around on top of this layer. All right, so pretty much technically we're done with the Photoshop stuff, but I want to fine tune the image a little bit. So here I got a folder, and in the folder we have Zombie and her foot. And so I can just quickly turn her off if I want. And what I wanted to do is fix up the background a little bit. Now, first thing I wanted to do was get rid of all the wires hanging from the neon lights in the background. I found them very visually distracting, so Photoshop those out. So the next thing I wanted to do was kind of create a separation between Zombie and the background, the subject in the background. And in photography, you do this with a fast lens, like an f1.2 or 1.4 aperture lens. And what it does is it kind of makes the background blurry. So the subject pops off the background a little more. It creates like a 3D-ish kind of pop. And what I wanted to do is create a fake bokeh in this image. So I took the background image and I blurred it with a Gaussian blur. You can blur it as much as you want. There's even lens blur options in Photoshop. So I blurred the background. And the thing is, I masked it so I can cut part of the background out and keep it sharp. The thing is, the reflections on the floor are at the same depth from the camera as the model. So that area has to be sharp, but the background neon lights have to be blurry. So I just did a little quick mask on that. And it looks pretty good. It looks like there's a little bit of a blurry background behind her, and it kind of gives that separation. So that worked out really well. And that's a trick you can use in your composites if that's something you want to create. Now the image looks okay here, but I wanted to add a little character to the image. So what I did is I got some photos of stars and I superimposed some stars on the background. Now I have it at 30%. If I go to 100%, you can see the starry night behind her. And it kind of doesn't make sense because she's indoors and there's stars, but then again, she's levitating and that doesn't make sense either. So we set that to 30%. And I kind of faded the stars towards the bottom and left them a little brighter around the top. So I used an eraser or a mask to sort of figure that out. And it just adds a kind of little magic to the shot. So that's the one thing I wanted to do. And the other thing is, if you remember when we did the photo shoot, we had a blue light on the one side and a pink light on the other side. So what I did is I added a blue light, just like a little dash of blue, and I made this is what, a screen layer, a soft light layer at 50%. So I took a big blue brush and just popped it on the image, and on the other side I did a little pink. And it just kind of adds a little, it kind of blends everything together. Now you don't have to do this, but this is an option. Okay, so now that the image is done and we have it set up and stylized the way we want, it's time to conceptualize, conceptualize how we want to animate it. So in this case, what I wanted to do was have the background image appear first, just to sort of set the tone. And then I wanted the blue light to appear on one side, then the pink light on the other side. And then I want Zombaebby to appear in the middle, and she's going to be kind of levitating in the middle. So that's the concept I wanted to create. Now, first thing we have to do is figure out what aspect ratio we want to edit in. Now, this was designed to be a short for YouTube, and a short for YouTube is basically 16 by 9 turned this way, so it's 9 by 16, and I wanted to do everything in 4K. So this is basically 2160 by 3140. I believe that's 4K in a vertical format. So you just take regular 4K and switch the numbers so it becomes vertical. So that's the aspect ratio I used for all of these images here. Okay, so on the screen here, I have all the elements for my animation. So we have BG1, BG2, BG3, BG4, then we have Zombaebby, and then we have a darker version of the background. So what this is I wanted the neon lights to kind of flicker and pulse on and off. So this is the neon lights in the dark position. So what I did is basically, let's just take this image as an example. To create the darker image, I just duplicated the layer and then changed the blend mode to subtract. And then we changed the opacity to, let's see, what was it, 50%, 30%. So now when the lights flicker, we get this effect. So everything's just kind of darker, but the colors stay the same. All right, so here's BG1, and this is just the static background, nothing on except for the background image. We have the stars and that kind of thing. So the next thing I wanted to happen was the blue light to turn on. So here is BG2, and it's just got the blue light on. So just line that up. So if we turn it off and on, you'll see the blue light turns on. And then BG3 was the blue light and pink light. I'm going to pop that in here. So now the pink light turns on. So if we have this in a sequence in Premiere Pro, we have the main shot, then the blue light turns on, then the pink light turns on. And then fourth frame, we get Zombaebby in there. And of course, Zombaebby is this image here saved as a PNG, so it's got no background. So now we have this graphic of Zombaebby that we can animate moving up and down. And then when we want to flicker the lights, we have this BG4 image, and that pops in the background, and that just, it appears for a frame and disappears for a frame, and it gives the effect of flickering neon lights, which is pretty cool. So that's the theory for Premiere Pro. All the different elements for this animation are all chopped up and set up in the right aspect ratios. So when it comes time to animating, I just drag and drop the frames in the right position, and we're good to go. Make it nice and easy for myself to animate this kind of thing. So now let's jump into Premiere Pro. All right, so here we are in the Premiere Pro. And we're going to do a little animation here, and I'm going to talk you through how I did this. Now, first thing you got to do is set up a new sequence. And here we're going to go to sequence settings, just so you can see what's going on. And I watched a lot of videos on how to create shorts for YouTube, and everyone's saying you do 1080p vertical, and I found the quality just to be really mushy. So I just do 4K vertical. So you can see here, 2160 by 3840 square pixels, and in frame rate 23.97. Obviously, if you're shooting something different, you can obviously change that. And then audio sample rate. And then here for video preview, I just keep it pretty low because it's just a preview. So yeah, if you want to copy that, take a screenshot, and there you go. So we have all the elements loaded up into the bin. We have the BG1. We have the BG2 with the blue light, BG3, and then of course BG4, I forgot to mention, is just the shadow. So you see, if you look down here, you see the shadow of the foot. So when Zombaebby appears, her reflection or shadow appears on the ground. So those are the 4 background images. So if we go here, you see first one, second one, third one, and then fourth one, Zombaebby appears and the shadow appears below her. I kind of kept them separate because when Zombaebby levitates, I would have to move the shadow away from her. And I didn't want to go through all that trouble. Of course, if you want to, you can, but I just want to simplify a little bit. So first thing first, what I want to do is make the neon lights blink. So here is that dark image that we created here with the subtract layer. So that's right here, and that just appears for 1 frame. So if we play this, there we go. Each one of these 1 frames is the dark image appearing over top of the other images. All right, so now we're going to create the animation of Zombaebby levitating. I've loaded up the PNG here, and I've deleted all the animation effects and things like that. So we're going to do all this from scratch. So we have the beginning pop in, and then Zombaebby is going to appear. And what we want to do is get her to levitate, but we don't want her too high or too low. So what you can do is you can click on this button here, show grid, and you can create a little grid. Now ignore all these other lines. This is for another project I'm working on. But these 2 lines right here is what we want to pay attention to. I want Zombaebby kind of hovering between these 2 lines. So what we got to do is create keyframes. Now here in the effects controls, here we have all the frames. So we can add keyframes in here. And this is the trick. So what we're going to do is see we have our position here. It's the button, it's the number on the right that we're going to have to change. So we're going to add a keyframe by just clicking this little diamond icon, and then we're going to move over a little bit, and we're going to add another keyframe. So first thing I want to do is when Zombaebby appears, I want her to levitate upwards. So we pay attention to where she is here on the screen, and we can zoom in a little bit. Let's go 75%. And we're going to watch her head here. So I'm going to keep her relatively close to the middle because I don't want her levitating like this. I just want her to sort of hover up and down. So second keyframe, we're just going to move her up just a little bit. There we go. And then we're going to add another keyframe over here. Click on the diamond, and then we're going to bring her down just a little bit. Now you can actually click on the Zombaebby image and move it around like this if you want. You want her to levitate and like go in circles and stuff like that. You can do something like that as well, but I just want easy up and down. So now we've gone down again. So now we go to another spot, and now we're going to bring her up just a little bit. And you know what? Maybe these are just spaced out a little too far. So we're going to bring them a little closer together, add another keyframe here, and then we're going to bring her down again. Up and down, up and down. So if we watch this, it's a little too slow, right? I don't like that. So we're going to have to bring these keyframes in a little tighter. So let's play and watch that again. There we go. That makes sense. Although I think we can go in just a touch tighter. Okay, so now we have up, down. Everything looks good. But if you notice the animation, every time Zombaebby hits the top, it kind of has this click, stop, and then down, click, stop, and it's kind of abrupt. What you want to do is kind of like, I don't know what the word, like speed ramp it in to the upper position and speed ramp it down. So what we're going to do is we're going to click over here. All right, so if you click on the actual diamond, you'll see these little nodes appear. And if you don't see them, you'll just have to expand on the position. See the little down arrow? So you open that up and you'll see these. So what you can do is you can manipulate. Can I zoom in on this at all? Let's see. Seems like it's, yeah, there we go. Okay, so we have these little nodes where we can position, kind of speed ramp it in. So what we want to do is push it all the way down to the bottom. And I know you really can't see this because this is so tight. I can barely see it myself. But you can see here now we've ramped it up like that. And that just doesn't make sense if we watch that. So what we want to do is you want to bring these nodes all the way to the bottom. And since we're not moving Zombaebby that much, this line is pretty close to the bottom. So we're not really going to see it that much, but it's going to make a difference. So if we watch, see how she kind of comes into position and out of position. So what we want to do is grab all these outer nodes and just bring them down. Click here, bring it down. And you'll notice once you start changing these settings, these diamonds turn into these like hourglass figures. So you'll know what you've done. So we turn this down, we turn this down. And of course, if you bring these nodes out like this, that ramp into that motion becomes even longer. So you can do that if you want. So now let's squish this and use the screen real estate here. And we're going to do this to all these nodes all the way across. Okay, so now that that's done, we can watch the animation and everything should be a lot smoother when she levitates. See, that looks perfect. So with the screen, we'll zoom in to fits, we'll turn off the guides and we'll play it again. And you can see now the whole animation. So there it is, she's hovering. Now I'll show you how I did that blur zoom in part in the beginning. All right, so in the effects, we're going to type in camera blur, and there it is. And then make sure you're selected or you have the PNG of Zombaebby selected or whatever file you want to blur, and drag and drop that on there. And you can see there's the blur. So what we want to do is we're going to take the blur down to 0, and we're going to go to the front or make sure we're at the beginning of this frame. So let's shrink this a little bit. So there's the beginning of the frame. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, let's say 3 frames in, and then we're going to drop a keyframe here by clicking the stopwatch. So now we have, let's zoom in here. So we have a keyframe here of Zombaebby being perfectly sharp. So now we're going to go to the beginning of the sequence and we're going to drop another keyframe. And in this one, we're going to blur it by, let's say, I don't know, 30. So now she's going to blur into existence. Woo! All right. So again, if we click on the keyframe, we can grab these nodes here and we can kind of ramp it. So she blurs in nice and quick. So now we got this shape going on. So if we play this, she'll start off super blurry and then just appear. Well, maybe too fast. So let's elongate that a little bit. Create that ramp like that. And let's play it again. There we go, perfect. So if we create the in and out point like that, we can watch that a few times. And that's exactly how I did it before. And that looks pretty good. And it gives kind of this like mysterious effect where she just kind of appears. And she of course blurs in at the same time that this BG4 frame appears with her shadowed foot. Wouldn't make sense if she appeared before her shadow. All right, this tutorial's over. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below. And here's the thing. Here's my Instagram. Here's my Twitter. If you guys create a little project and you want to show it to me, you can link me on Instagram and Twitter. And I'd love to see what you guys created after learning what you learned from this tutorial. So that's awesome. Let's all keep learning and creating. And now here's the thing. If you want to let me know what kind of content you want to see on this channel, watch this video right here and leave a comment in the video and let me know what kind of content. Do you want to see more photography content, more videography content, or a mix of both, more tutorials? Let me know in the comments on that video. All right, with that being said, peace out. See you guys in the next video.